Oh, add title.
Hey.
Hold on.
Okay, stop it.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
I think we should stop it, or maybe no.
Hold on.
Oh,
It's going. Hold
it's
on.
streaming on Facebook now.
Hold on a
Yes.
second. Okay. So
We're
on my
going.
side, it's still showing conversion, but all right. Looks like it's less than perfect. I don't know what's going on here.
All right, guys, this is what's happening. We're all
We're live now. Okay, got it. All right, guys. Thank you, Fatima.
No, because I noticed that it says live on Facebook. Okay, just so you guys know,
Okay.
we're learning this now, Zoom live on Facebook. So if you're seeing some
Woo-hoo.
difficulties, it's because we're just learning as we go.
Yeah, but you know what? It only took us a second, so we're okay. We recovered good. Which, by the way, this is a lesson on overcoming fear. Even though this is like, okay, we don't know what we're doing it anyway. So, on that note, Jay Greene, welcome to our Facebook Live through Zoom mishap show. How you doing, man?
Great. Thanks so much, Ed and Fatima, for having me here with y'all today. I'm looking forward to kind of talking about some of the do's and don'ts with estate planning and
Yeah.
how that kind of relates with the coronavirus happening and what we need to be thinking about as far as doing our estate plans going into that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking right now, a lot of people are just thinking survival, right? They're thinking, well, how am I going to get the next roll of toilet paper? How am I going to get more pasta? They're thinking about all the basics. And so, what I don't want to happen is that they overlook some really essential planning pieces of their lives because, unfortunately, I hate to say this, it's a tough thing to say, but it's necessary. Some people are they're going to die of this. And so, what happens to their families, right? We want to make sure that we leave our families better than after we were gone, right? We want to make sure that they're better. And so part of that is this estate planning piece. We've seen so many times, right? Jay, we've seen everything from Aretha Franklin to Prince. They die intestate, meaning without a will, and everything's in shambles, and now they're fighting. I have a friend who spent a few $1 million already fighting with their family on the estate because the mom passed. It could get really, really ugly. Plus, let's be honest, if you don't do it, the government's going to step in and they're going to take care of it for you. And guess what? It's going to cost you a lot of money, right? So I'll let you take it from there, Jay.
No, that's exactly right, Ed. So that's kind of what I specialized in doing is making sure that we stay in control no matter what's happening. So that's whether we have some terminal illness happen to us, we have the coronavirus happening to us, we have financial situations that might change for us, making sure that our estate plan is go no matter what those plans may be. So luckily, if you are working with me or another qualified estate planning attorney, you've already got plans in place. One of the things you want to think about during this time frame is making sure that all your trustees, all your beneficiaries are up to date, that it's actually what you want to have reflected now. And we want to make sure that we're letting our trustees, our powers of attorney, know where our documents are so that they have the ability to get them if something does happen to us. So that's what we're doing with any of our existing clients. We have been sending out a couple of offers to people during this time frame.
Okay.
As far as if you have some existing documents, you have a power of attorney, you have a healthcare directive, but you're not sure if it's going to work the way you want it to when you go into a hospital or when you actually need it. We want to be there to make sure it works for you. So we've been reaching out to people. We've been offering that service free for
Excellent.
people.
Oh,
So we're
good.
trying to make sure people's plans are up to date. So we're doing that for people that already have existing plans. What we're also doing, though, is trying to reach out to people that don't have plans in place.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the social distancing parameters that almost the majority of the country is under, we're a little worried about how can we get proper planning in place even with those constraints on us. So that's what I kind of want to talk to you about a little bit today is kind of what we're doing in my office to make sure that people can get estate plans in place, whether they are social distancing with really no medical issues, or if they potentially have medical issues, how are we going to be able to still make sure that they have an estate plan that they can use?
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
Hey, where does the advanced medical directives fall into place? Because unfortunately, if something happens to somebody and they go into a coma or something happens, how does that play out in this kind of situation, Jay?
Well, what you want to do is for that document, we want to make sure that it is that we've given instructions to somebody. So we don't want the state to just have a God power to determine whether we live or die. What we want to do is make sure that we nominated somebody we trusted. And that could be anywhere from a spouse, a different family member. It may just be some close friend that we've known for a long time. So we want to make sure that we've given them the authority to make medical decisions for us when we can't anymore. What we also want to do is we don't want to just give them that set of instructions without knowing what we actually wanted. So we want to make sure in the situations where we're terminal, comatose, vegetative, we're giving them instructions about the type of medical care that we want. Do we want to receive ventilation? Do we want to receive hydration? Kind of some of the food, do we want to be fed? So we want to make sure that we're listing all that out. And we want to make sure that we're because that's a lot of times going to be our family members, our loved ones. We're wanting to make sure that we give them a very clear set of instructions so that if they ever have to start making difficult decisions for us, they're going to know what our wishes were. So we want to make that clear. What I encourage my clients to do is if they go to the hospital, that they not just execute a healthcare directive at the hospital. The ones that we do in my office have more sophisticated planning in them. So they have more detailed plans about what happens. And if you go into the non-attorney staff within the hospital, you would be overriding the plan we do in my office. So we want to make sure that you create a good comprehensive plan and then that it's available for you when you need it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that, that the hospital one would override yours. Ooh, that could be a big time game changer. And speaking of that in detail, what do you recommend as far as what kind of will should a person have? I know there's several types.
Well, I think for people, it's important that they put together a comprehensive plan, and that can vary depending on the person. It's not really related to the amount of money you have or the assets you have. What we start thinking about is what are you trying to accomplish in your life and what are your goals? So we want to make sure that you're achieving your goals and that we're putting plans in place that's going to protect you while you're alive and well. And then when you become incapacitated, that you're still protected and that your money's there and available for you without having to go through the courts, without the government being in control of what's happening to you. And then we want to make sure that if something happens and you unfortunately pass away, that there's a set of plans in place that's going to direct who you want it to go to. We have planning in my office that does remarriage protection to make sure that if you pass away, your children are not accidentally disinherited when the spouse marries a new spouse. We have protection that when you leave stuff to the children, you're leaving it to them, not to your in-laws. You want it to go to your children, to your grandchildren. If they have creditor issues, if they have addiction issues, we're putting plans in place that protect them.
Well,
so what I always tell people is we're looking at the types of planning you want. You can go with a more basic plan to just avoid probate if you want, or you can add in some of the protections for your family members, for yourself, and then also do a higher level of planning if people are thinking of asset protection as business owners and they want to segment their assets in such a way that's a little bit less cumbersome than a lot of entity registrations, or if they want to look at qualifying for government benefits, whether that's veteran benefits, or if they need to plan for Medicaid, Medi-Cal, we do that type of planning, which can involve some trust work.
Is
so
most
there's
of the
all
stuff
different.
you're doing is legacy or no? Is legacy planning, is that the majority of it, have you been seeing, or is it more, for example, of qualifying for government benefits?
It's some of both. It's some of both. So I think as far as me, and I think when you're working with a good estate planning attorney, they're taking a very comprehensive look at your estate and what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. So not everybody's trying to necessarily plan for Medicaid, Medi-Cal. Some people just want to plan so that they know it's available if they need it in the future.
I see.
But what we're wanting to do is make sure that we're kind of leaving our assets and structured in such a way that it gets to the people that we want. So then you kind of remain in control of what's happening with your estate, whether whether you become disabled or if you pass away, then what your wishes are still what's going to be happening with your
I
estate.
see.
Absolutely.
I see.
I mean, it's interesting. I have a lot of clients and that I've served, and I always tell them, get a trust. Make sure you get a trust. You have to get a trust. And
Yeah.
it's a conversation that you have to keep on reminding someone. But I'm surprised at how many homeowners do not have trust. And can you kind of elaborate more about who should have trust? When should someone really start planning to? When is it important to do so? And how long does it take to do a trust?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think it's important that people going into this are thinking about protecting their assets, protecting their estate for their family with the least cost possible. So one of the things we want to think about in California is avoiding probate. Probate is very expensive in California. It's 3 to 5% of the estate. So you're kind of looking at, for every $1 million, and it's based off the gross value of the estate, so it's not the net value less the mortgage. We're looking at about 30 to 50,000 of fees on every $1 million.
30 to
Just
50,000
thinking about
on
what
every
property
million.
values are in the Bay, that's really going to mean that, yeah. So it really means that for everybody that owns property in California, you really need a trust to make sure that it avoids probate. Some people think you can have a will and that the will is actually going to avoid probate, but probate still has to go through the probate court. It's
Right.
better than dying intestate because you're still naming what's happening. You're still saying who's in control and who's getting your stuff, but you still have that extra level of these expenses to go through. Whereas if you do a trust, you're not going to have that level of expense.
Can you
So,
that
that,
again? I'm sorry, you said 30 because it froze up. You said 30 to 50,000 every.
Million.
30 to 50,000 for about every million.
Interesting. Okay. Wow.
So it's very expensive. So what we want to do is just make sure that we're not putting those fees on our family, and we can do planning now that protects against that. So
yeah. Since
go
you
ahead.
mentioned that, so how would someone, okay, if someone doesn't have that money, right? Someone passed away, the heirs are responsible of taking care of the estate, and there isn't any a trust in place. How do they pay for probate? How's that usually handled?
So there's a couple of options. So one of those is it could be taken from other assets. If they have other assets in addition to the house, the fees could come out of those other assets. One of the other things is sometimes there's some funding companies where we might could get some funding that could be used to pay for those fees. But in a lot of instances where families don't have that type of resource available, the property is going to end up having to be sold to pay for the probate fees.
Interesting. Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize, that how planning makes a difference and how it really will protect them and their assets. So that's a great thing to bring up. Thanks.
No problem. No problem. And you had asked earlier about when people might want to start doing planning.
Right.
So that is it's important to do now. I mean, everybody needs an estate plan. Eventually, everybody will pass away. Some of us will become disabled, and that estate plan is going to be very important because that's what's going to protect us when we're not able to do it ourselves. So we want to make sure that we're getting that in place so we're always protected and that we're protecting our loved ones. What makes it a little bit more challenging now was what I was mentioning about the social distancing requirements and the formalities for doing estate planning. So what I guess I kind of want to let the public know is that there's still opportunities to do planning during this crisis. And especially if you're in a high-risk group, if you're elderly, if you're immunocompromised, if you're a healthcare professional who could potentially be exposed, you're going to want to have a good plan in place that protects you and protects your family with what you have going on. So some of those formalities, there are provisions within the probate code that if we are doing something and we have it with substantial compliance and clear intent that this was our testamentary wishes, then we can bypass some of the will requirements for witnesses. There's ways that we could potentially do a trust. The notarizations on the trust are actually just required for real estate. So we would still need to do it eventually, but we can do some temporary documents in this time so that you have a plan now. So we can do a trust for you that does your complete estate distribution and who you're wanting to get stuff to and how you're wanting those people to be protected. And we can do a will in place that's going to pour everything into that trust. That's going to make sure that you have a good comprehensive estate plan if you haven't started one already. So that's one of the things that I want to let people know. Estate planning is definitely an essential service. If you become disabled, if you pass away, you're definitely going to need to have those types of plans in place. So don't let the fact that there are some social distancing restraints keep you from making, good and proper documents. In my office too, we've also been developing kind of some of the cleaning protocol for when we do start more in-office signings. So we'll definitely still maintain some social distancing and separation between the witnesses, between the notaries, to make sure that we can get those plans in place now and that people are not putting each other at risk by getting those plans in place. So we kind of have different levels where we're able to meet people and make sure that they're able to get plans in place today.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does one start? How do you recommend somebody start the whole estate planning process?
Well, typically what I do when I have clients working with me is I have them start thinking about who is their beneficiaries, who are the people they're trying to look out for in addition to themselves. And then we think about kind of what you have. So we start looking at, from an income perspective, planning that out, thinking about your long-term care costs from an income perspective, how you're going to pay for those. And then we think about your assets. And we're looking both at the long-term care side and we're looking at from a planning side to kind of determine what the risks are with those assets and the beneficiaries you have, whether they have some special needs, whether somebody had an addiction issue, whether somebody had a financial issue and was a little concerned about just giving somebody directly money. And then we kind of develop the type of planning we need based on your beneficiaries and your financial information. What I consider myself to be is an educational firm. So I consider that I'm kind of educating people on the different types of estate planning and what their options are. I'm, of course, making some recommendations because I've been doing this for over a decade. So I will try to help people and kind of guide them about what their different options are. But then ultimately, they're picking the plan that works best for them and for their family. What I always talk about is making sure that you don't just have a sheet of paper, because a sheet of paper is not going to help you in the end. We want to make sure that we actually accomplish all of our goals, and we want a plan in place that's going to accomplish those goals and not just a sheet of paper that makes us feel better. So some people are probably out rushing to create an estate plan real quickly, maybe without an estate attorney, and ultimately their plans may not work the way they want them to in the end. So that's why it's good to work with somebody competent that can help them accomplish all their goals, because everybody's got very specific goals about what they want to achieve and kind of all this hard work they've done all their life, where they want it to go.
Yeah, plus the devil's in the details, quite honestly. So my last and most important question of all, how do people get a hold of you, Jay?
So people can reach me. I have my card here. So it's Jay Greene. So it's Jay Greene, and I am right by Union Square. I'm at 447 Sutter Street. So people can call at 415-905-0215. And then my website is assetprotectionbayarea.com. So they can reach me there. I also have a workshop coming up tomorrow. It's Monday, April the 1st. I'm going to be doing a series of webinars. It's going to be the 3 easy steps to estate planning. It's at 11 o'clock a.m. So if you go
Pacific Standard Time, 11 o'clock
Pacific time.
Pacific Standard Time, in case people are coming in from other areas.
Yeah, and then it's Greene Estate Probate and Elder Law Firm. If you look for it on Facebook, there's the event with a link for the
Excellent. Well, thank
workshop
you
tomorrow.
so much to both you and to Fatima for being on this. I think, people are getting a lot of value out of this, which is mission accomplished. Everybody, including you, Jay, and you, Fatima, stay safe,
You too.
stay positive, and we'll see you the next time around. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, we're off.